I have these type of cards too.
They're so good. They're right.
I bought them.
Those cards scare me.
They are alarming. Every single one. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I don't know. They don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. Like next.
Yeah.
So Alex Barcelona. What could I say about Alex Barcelona? So she is my friend first. I truly believe that. She's someone that I admire a great deal as a business owner, as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, because I see how you show up for people and include them in so many things. And she happens to also be my jiu-jitsu professor. Yes. And so multiple time world champion. You'll have to talk to us about that today. Then, so I invited you on today because we're doing an 8 domains podcast. And so we had discussed whether it's the vocational domain or the physical domain or the marital domain, in the way that I just admire and am so interested in how you have like developed into this person that is so real and so authentic. And we were talking in the last episode with Lee of just like, you seem really in touch with who you are and accepting of that, which then what I see from you is like this extension of grace towards everyone around you to let them be who they are. And it's just wonderful. So,
oh my God,
you were definitely
about a goddamn ego boost. Jeez.
Yeah. So, where do you want to start? So, I kind of presented and kind of pitched you a few different ideas, and I can start asking questions.
You can start wherever.
He talks about you like that when you're not here too, so it's for real. Yeah, just it's for real.
Yeah.
We can start wherever.
All right.
I'm an open book. I don't care.
So one of the things, like the initial thing that I thought about talking, and I want this conversation to just evolve and go wherever it naturally goes. So if rabbit trail, you catch that rabbit, just run it down and we'll just follow it. But the first thing that I thought is like, okay, here is this woman who's started with softball. Like I'm talking about the physical domain.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
Well, let me go back.
Yeah.
You're a person. You have like you're a personal trainer, right?
Yes, I do have my certification.
Okay, and then you're also a nutritionist, or yeah. Okay, and you're a jiu-jitsu instructor.
Yeah, I just half-ass everything.
Okay, but when we were talking like last week about coming on and just kind of discussing what we were going to talk about, you have like a bit of a journey there into like jiu-jitsu. Like, how did you find that? What captured you? Was it just Milton, or was it something else that you fell in love with about jiu-jitsu?
It wasn't just Milton. No, again, I think we discussed last week. I played softball my whole life growing up. I remember actually the day I went and I told my mom that my best friend had signed up for softball and I wanted to do it because I wanted to hang out with her. And my parents I grew up an only child. I have much older siblings, but I grew up as an only child. And so ask and you shall receive. And she signed me up for softball and I played for 17 years straight. And I loved it. I loved camaraderie. I loved the team experience. I loved the sport of it all. And you reach a point, though, when school ends. And again, I grew up in a very idealistic world, a very safe bubble. And I did as I thought was expected. You stop doing sports, you do that, and you have to like grow up. So work, family, whatever, go through those, check those little boxes off. And when I did that, I found that was like a fairy tale in my head and it wasn't reality. And as an athlete, your whole life, there is a shock when that is taken away from you and you kind of don't get to play anymore, literally and physically. And there's like a little hole in you all the time. Like, oh man, I remember. And you kind of like miss that. I'm sure you can find in other places, but I didn't. And then I found jujitsu, and I was like, oh, wait, I can still find that outlet. And there is that outlet again that is very unique in jiu-jitsu because it's a very individual sport. There is nobody to blame but yourself, which was new for me because in a team sport, you're like, well, I wasn't playing third. It's not my fault, you know? So, but at the same time, it's very team oriented because you are just with your group all the time, and they become family because these people are training every single day. And it's just a very unique experience. So when I found jiu-jitsu, I was like, oh, I can tap into that competitiveness that I had always had my whole life. I mean, I did gymnastics as well and dance also. I played volleyball, I played basketball. So I just feel like I'm a very sports oriented person. And then when I was able to find jiu-jitsu, felt happiness again.
How did you find it? Was that a friend as well, or was that
literally? My ex was training, and then I was curious through there, and then I found Milton's Academy because he was literally down the street next to the Starbucks.
Yes.
And I was,
And he says the moment that you walked in, y'all just clicked instantly.
we did.
Because he said you walked in and it was like you were just asking questions about signing up, and you guys just had this chemistry between the two of you, and you're just like a random stranger who walked in and you're just asking about how to sign up and what to do and all that stuff. And like in that
Yeah,
moment,
he had literally nothing. Like there was no front. It was a cardboard table. Yeah, he needed some help. Yeah, it was like the full, like the little plastic tables.
sounds a little scary? I'm like, oh,
That you put like the little tablecloth on and like some birthday cake. Like that's what it was.
That's fantastic.
Did you sign up that day? Sorry.
No, I think I took a little while.
Okay.
Like maybe like a week or two. Yeah, it was nothing. But then I do remember I would come back because again, the Starbucks is right there. So, and then I think it was just like, come on, sign up, and something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you? So you kind of just start doing jiu-jitsu. How old were you?
How old am I right now? I'm 37. I was 25, 26.
25, 26. So you started at white belt at 25, 26.
Yeah.
And then you become a world champion.
Yeah.
And
That
so
was
that's not common from what I understand. Like most, like when I think of like world champions in at a sport like jiu-jitsu, to where it is so specialized and so intense to get there, I think of like Milton's story where he started at a very young age, right?
Right.
Or like
Yeah.
Joao, your son, who started at
6, 7. Yeah.
6, 7 years old, and then like works up and goes through the ranks and
Yeah.
But you see, like, I'm so interested in that because when we're talking about the 8 domains, you have to really kind of know what you value about that experience.
Yes.
And so what was it that you valued that kind of, I'm just so curious about that.
Okay, I got it. So when I had Grace, I was very young. I was like, had just turned 23. And she was my entire world. I literally didn't know anything other than my cute little baby girl. And I was obsessed. And I didn't know that when you become a mom, you don't need to like throw yourself away. So I put everything into her, and which is fine also, but I just lost who I was. And then I had Reef. And when I had Reef, I learned that I do not need to throw away who I was, which actually at that time I didn't even really know who I was because I was still searching.
Yeah.
But I found jiu-jitsu after I had Reef. And that's when I said, oh, it's okay. I looked at training jiu-jitsu as being selfish. So I said, it's okay that I can focus on me. And essentially I am, and again, I did not sign up to become a world champion or even a black belt. I really did not care. I was just like, oh, I'm finding some fun. Like, I found me time. I'm great, cool. So I was able to, I felt, be selfish. That's what I just told myself. Like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to go train. I'm going to go do this. And I will be happier. And so, I don't know, in like elementary school, they say like, oh, fill your cup. Make sure you fill your cup. So I filled my cup before, and then I was happy leaving, and then I can accommodate my children. So, and not be like Miss Frazzley, spacey cadet person.
Right.
So I was able to focus on jiu-jitsu, and it just made me very happy being there. I liked the people there. I liked the students there. I liked Milton. I liked the outlet that it served. And I just took off, like, again, never could I have thought it is now just what I do.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, okay, I'm going to class. Oh, okay, I'm going to class. Oh, and every day's turned into months, months turned into years, and that's it.
So that bringing me to like a really good point of like trying to, explain this 8 domains concept even more. So oftentimes we don't know we've never articulated what our actual values are. So you kind of reverse engineer yourself into articulating those values by saying, what are you doing and what consequences does that afford you? And that consequence or that state of being that you get to be in because of what you're doing, that's your value. Because we are already investing in what is most important to us on like a unconscious level. Like we just do the things that, bring us the most satisfaction or whatever. And then whenever we find ourselves dissatisfied, like throwing ourselves, like I think that's a really common, and I'm trying not to talk out of pocket in an experience I don't have, but I think, and you guys are both mothers, and it's different for mothers than it is for fathers, but I think it is common that when a woman becomes a mother, she becomes a mother and stops being a lot of other things.
Yes.
And so that when that creates that disconnect with other parts of yourself, that was the alarm that sounds like it went off for you. Like, oh, I'm not in line with a set of values. So anyways, all that to say, when you went into, kind of diving into jiu-jitsu and became so competitive, what did that afford you? What state of being with yourself did that allow you? Was it a sense of confidence? Was it a sense of like mastery? Was it a sense of I don't know, it's like selfishness or whatever it is that became the value system that you continually invested in?
Maybe I would have had a different outlook. Like maybe if I was like losing, or like, or I sucked or something. Maybe you'd be like, oh, this is not for me. Like maybe I should just go like to the gym or lift weights. Yeah. Like maybe that would have affected my thought process, but I just felt like every tournament was a confirmation, like that this is the right path. And of course, even when you lose, I really don't like the saying, like, you always, like, it's not losing, it's learning, like, whatever, that's so silly, but it's true. But I don't know, I think competition in general is the best way to reveal who you are as a person, because win or lose, it is very obvious. It reveals who you are. So somebody could go and compete and they can win and win and win, and then they can compete and they can lose. And then what happens after is very telling of who that individual is. If they are, in my mind, somebody who is weak in the moment and they show that they'll be somebody who like, oh, like I'm not competing anymore. Like that was enough for me. That to me, that reveals that they're not mature enough to handle a loss. And for whatever it is, and you can grow and you can fix yourself from there. Everybody has had problems like that. I mean, yeah. I've revealed that as well myself. But as you grow more experienced, I believe as a person, you look at that loss and say, okay, how can I objectively look at it? If this is something I want to continue, what is going to be my takeaway? How am I going to fix that? And then that becomes a challenge because, again, there are countless variables when you're competing. And to try to master and replicate the successful ones while in turn fixing and tweaking the errors from the last one, which may not even occur in the next one, is kind of the mental game that is intriguing. And again, I just think of it as like, we're all just little like ice blocks and like we're chipping away, trying to like make this beautiful sculpture before we melt away and die. But that is how I view each progression, I guess, of myself. And that's why I kept going, because I felt that it was rewarding. And as long as it was rewarding for me and it was somehow being valuable to my children, which is, again, my mental health and whatnot. And then later down the road, when it became my job, I was like, okay, then this is a sacrifice for them regardless. This is how I will make money. So me getting a nanny and being away from them now for maybe a little bit more time or whatnot is okay. I justified it that way. Like, okay, it is okay because now I am working. Now it is this. So this is how I better win because I got to make some money and people value that. So that is how I guess I justified it and felt that that progression was valuable.
All right. So I think what I heard was like, some of your values are you. So the question is, how do you want to experience yourself? And you just described yourself as valuing like self-exploration.
Yeah.
And the problems that jiu-jitsu presents is constant self-exploration. So like whenever I'm rolling with, upper belts or even like some of our blue belts that are just big and strong and athletic and like
trying to be like, are you sure you're a purple belt?
Exactly. And so like, but it's I always thank them for giving me the problems to solve, because it's how do I react in those moments? Do I get frustrated and make excuses, or I'm just like, yeah, dude, you're better than me right now, and that was fantastic. Thank you for the problems to solve. And so that self-exploration sounds like a value of yours, and that can be in the physical domain, that can be in the spiritual, or not spiritual, but maybe emotional, mental domain of like, you're learning something about yourself and how you show up in the face of adversity and defeat, and like that exposes your character. So it sounds like jiu-jitsu is an investment into a value of self-exploration and like self-mastery.
Yeah, I like what you said.
Yeah. It goes to what you said about not knowing yourself yet too. So you like found a lot about who you are, or you found
I definitely
yourself
agree. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Good job, guys. That's a good one. Yeah. That was a lot more eloquently said.
Well, and it's a bit of a diversion or a detour from where I thought we were going to go, because I wanted to talk about like, what did you value about yourself as, a competitor? And now that you're not doing as many competitions, obviously you're pregnant now and you're 37 and you're a mother and you're a business owner, like, but I can imagine all of the challenges that come with your current state of life are still presenting that same opportunity for you to unfold in front of yourself.
Yes.
Which I think is important of like, I think I had this idea of we were going to talk about how your values have shifted, but they haven't.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm still training too.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Still competing?
No. Though I do have quite a few friends. I don't know, maybe it's just like, oh no, that was her third too. But I don't know, I show really fast. But I have a friend who competed at like 18 weeks pregnant at the World Championships.
Whoa.
And that's wild, because I guess they could compete now, but yeah, she did not look pregnant. I was like, that is really amazing. And then she made it to the finals too. And then she felt just like for a split second, like uncomfortable. And she's just like, oh, tap, like it's not that big a deal. Like, okay, you win, good job. Which I think is amazing. And then I also just saw there was like a 7-month pregnant fencer in the Olympics. That was also super cool. But yeah, no, I don't think my priorities have changed too much. I know even like Grace was talking about when the baby comes and she was like, oh, just leave the baby at home and you can go. And I was like, oh, well, that's not quite how that works. You can come to the academy and watch the baby, but I'm not leaving a 2-month-old with you. But
not a doll.
yeah. But again, a lot of people are like, oh my God, like, how are you going to do it? I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, like, I own my own academy, so I'll do whatever I want to do. And I'm bringing my baby, and that's it. And we joked a bunch when earlier on when I was pregnant, I was like, I just want to be like really frank with everyone at the academy. I will birth this baby, but this is not my baby. This is a communal baby. And it is going to be widely known that anybody just picks this baby up. And
that's going back into like as a business owner, like in your vocational, there's so much overlap in what you do between your vocational domain and your relational domain.
Yeah.
Because you and Milton have, but you and Milton have built a community. Like last night I was, in class, Milton and I had planned to like hang out, but then like he had a friend in from out of town. And so his, they went to dinner with us, and then Derek just kind of joined us as well. And it was like this cool, just communal, hey, yeah, we're doing, and I haven't had that type of like interaction community since college. To where like, hey, I'm going to Denny's to play euchre tonight, who's coming? And like 4 or 5 people just come. And so I think that is one of the things that I value that's why jiu-jitsu, it's not necessarily just like jiu-jitsu.
Shannon's gonna try soon. We're selling it for her.
I know you are. I'm like,
but you
find
get
myself in jiu-jitsu.
But
deal with conflict.
You talk about doing improv.
Yeah.
Right? And I've been meaning to ask you about improv.
Like comedy improv?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm
like,
class number 1. Yeah.
But like
the second one, it's really fun.
But
and it's
but the community that you're finding there. So talk about that. Like because
and the mom guilt stuff too.
Yeah.
It's just I think I totally relate to what you're saying about the guilt stuff, or about, if I'm a mom, I'm a mom, I need to be a mom. And but then anything you do for yourself really does. I want my kids to see a happy mom, and I want my kids to see like a fulfilled mom. And it's not to say that if that's your main and only thing that you can't also be those things, but for me, I needed other things. And so, and this improv class was at 7 p.m. So it was like, okay, I get to have dinner with them still. They're going to bed, and then I go to improv till 7 to 9. And then just come back, so happy and doing something scary and crazy.
We can talk about that more. But it's also so true. And I think it's also important that your kids, again, if it's not, no problem either. But I think it's important that like, if your kids see that you are doing something, like, it can pose curiosity to them too. Like, where are you going? Like, what are you doing without me? Like, you're always with me. Oh, I'm doing this. Well, what is it? Like, it just shows that, again, that you are valuing something else, and it's okay to value multiple things to make you a well-rounded person. Like, it's not like you're coming home like a crackhead or something. It's like, ooh, that's bad. It's, ooh, that's adding to my mom. That's making her happy. That's cool. And then that shows them that they can add things to their life that are positive and beneficial as well. So I don't know, sometimes I feel like I like try to like talk myself into like saying why it's okay, like justifying, but I think it's true.
It's a lot of pressure on the kid too if they're the sole. If my children were the sole reason for my being, I just feel like that's a massive amount of pressure on them. Maybe at some point they have to be good and not get, that's just a lot of pressure. I don't know.
It is a lot of pressure. And I think kids pick up on that. And I don't know if it's parentification or whatever you would call it, but like when you make your child such the center of who you are and your identity, and like they kind of get lost in that role of like, oh, I'm here to support mom, or oh, I'm here to support dad, because it's just this enmeshment thing that happens that can become really unhealthy and a lot of pressure on a child.
And I think that goes back to what we were saying off camera earlier, which is just even in like any relationship, it's very important to value your individual self. And I think also times we forget that kids are literally humans. Like when we dumb it down that much, I think it really makes it very obvious. Like, I don't know. I remember when Grace was a baby, I thought I was just playing like 24/7. I was like, oh, this is my baby. It's my doll. Has no personality yet. Whatever personality is my personality. It is just an extension of me. But then around like 4 and 5, they really develop another personality, which is literally themselves. And you're like, what? Who? That's not like a me trait. That's not your dad trait. And then like it clicked with me like around then. I was like, you are a whole ass human who has wants and needs and likes that are not my own. And then that's a challenge again for me or an outside person to say, oh, I am going to accept and love every part of you.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether I agree with it or not, and I have to now learn to work with this so we can be compatible. And I think
and that goes back
telling.
to, again, like a relational domain of like, how do I want to experience myself in relationship to my kids? Well, I want to experience myself as whole, right? Like I want to be the type of person with myself that I not only know what's in there and I know what's happening, which I don't always. It takes me time to like identify what part is, taking the microphone at times, but me understanding and going through these moments of like, I'm by myself doing my own thing, whether I'm at the gym or I'm at jiu-jitsu or I'm even here working sometimes, like, I find out something about myself, I see something about myself, and the more I can have compassion and acceptance of my parts, then the more different like Jamin is just like me in some ways, but in other ways, like he's into shit that I don't know anything about, and it's hard for me to connect with it musically or like the shows that he likes to watch or just, whatever. But I'm getting better and better at just like, I'm good with me, and so it's easier for me to be good with him and let him be his own person too. So by extension of me having my own life and having my own shit going on and have my own relationships that have nothing to do with my kids, then I come home and they're like interested in me and I get to be interested in them because we're not up each other's asses all the time, and I'm not trying to force them into some idea of who I think that they should be.
Yes, I think that is so, so important. Like Grace and I are opposites, and I have just accepted that, and that's okay. Like, cool. Like you can still be successful. You can still be all of these things without being like me. There's a million avenues, and it's okay. Like, it doesn't matter. And I think the quicker we can accept that we don't need to change people, we just need to like float down the same river together. It's a lot easier instead of like going upstream.
Steven Pinker's book, I think that's his name, Blank Slate, he talks about how parenting is, a lot of us want to be designers or we want to be architects of our children. And we want to like create a specific type of person. We talk about that. Like, I want to create a productive, happy, well-rounded, human being who's, healthy and happy and whatever, successful. But what he talks about is like, we're all hardwired with about 400 psychological traits that are going to manifest throughout our lives, regardless of any kind of like nurture. Like, there's a nature in us that is going to present itself throughout our development. And so he talks about parenting is more like being a shepherd or a guide as opposed to an architect or a designer, and allowing those safe boundaries for your children to explore who they are, and giving them the ability to, you know, be safe in exploring that throughout their lives, as opposed to, you know, like I have a plan for Jamin in my head that he's completely uninterested in. He doesn't want to hear about it. And I have to remember that, you know, whenever I started very early, I thought I was going to be a pastor. And so like I went that route, and everybody told me that's what I was going to do, and that's what my gift was and whatever. And so I did that, but then like things change. And I like didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. It took me 10 years to get an undergraduate degree. And then, you know, like I was in one profession for most of my life at that point. And then in my early 30s, I changed to do what I'm doing now. And even the journey from being in ministry to like working for the state and trying to do a private practice and kind of fumbling that, and that whole process unfolded itself. And like, I'm thrilled that it did the way that it did. And, I don't know, I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but
I completely agree with that. There's two things. One, I always feel like I had heard a while back, and I think I like to reiterate that to other people. I don't remember where I heard it, but they said like parenting stops like before 13, like usually around like 10 or 11. 10 or 11, they know right and wrong. And after that, you could tell them till you're blue in the face, but they will make their own decisions. So it's more like, you know, bowling with bumpers. Like, you stay in this parameter, and if you can do that, like, I'm just kind of like ping-ponging it through until you get to the end. Now, because you know right and wrong, and now it's your personality that is shaping your decisions. And from there on, it is just like you said, like this little like circle, and it's this little bowling alley. It's with the bumpers, and like, I'm sure I'm on this side, I'm on this side, making sure you somehow get to the end. And sure, we all fumble and fall and make really bad decisions and mess up, but that's okay. That is part of being a human. That it's okay. Yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah.
yeah. And I think something that I saw on an Instagram reel or something, it was like, I want to be the type of dad that whenever my kids mess up, they don't think, oh my God, my dad's going to kill me. I want to be the type of dad that whenever my kids mess up, they say, oh my God, I need to call my dad.
Yeah, my parents always said that.
Yeah. Which is hard because...
Yeah, I never did. I was like, I'm not fucking telling my mom. But they did always say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't modeled in some way. That's how.
Yeah.
If it wasn't, you're like, oh, I don't know if I can believe that. But
Yeah.
I bet Grace believes that in you.
Yeah, I hope so. I was like, I'm so cool, you guys. Like, I'm so chill.
Yeah, does she know you're a world champion? Does
Yeah.
she give a shit?
Nope.
Yeah. Like celebrities talk about that, but they don't know that I'm famous or whatever.
Yeah, sometimes.
Not impressed.
No, not at all. And I think Joao also kind of modeled, like, he's not going down that path.
Yeah, Nelson and I talked a lot about that last night too.
Yeah.
Down the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, he has full on quit. I had to have nice, like, sit down conversations with Milton and be like, look, buddy, you think you're not forcing, but you are. And you have to see that it is okay if he wants to do something else. And you can still be a successful person without becoming a jiu-jitsu athlete. So...
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about Joao last night is like, I see him at the gym often.
Yeah.
I don't have a ton to talk about with a 19-year-old kid other than, you know, his lifts and, you know, whatever. But he always comes up to me. He always fist bumps or shakes my hands or give me like the bro hug, and he asks me how I'm doing. And like, he's such a good person. And that's like, I think that's the part that gets missed a lot, because as a parent, like, I want my kids to do better than me. I want them to do better. I don't want any of my kids to take as long as it took me to figure out who they were going to be in the world and what they were going to do right? Like, but if that's what it takes, that's fine, as long as they are good. Like they're good with themselves. And Joel, like, he seems to I don't know, there's just like a sweetness to him.
Yes.
To where he is just a respectful, kind, good kid. And like that foundation is, I think, what is necessary for him to always, he's going to be fine.
He'll be, yes.
He's going to be fine. And I got to remember that with my kids too, of like, these are good people.
Yeah.
You know, they care about others, they have compassion, they have empathy. They're not always the most socially aware kids in the world, and that annoys the shit out of me. And they have their little ADHD brains, and I gotta remind them and, you know, make lists, and they don't even see. But the fact is like, all the feedback I get from adults who interact with my kids is how sweet they are, or how respectful they are, or how kind they are. And that really, more than their like path that they've got charted out for their futures, that's more important. And so the value of like parenting, maybe in that relational domain, is like, I value experiencing myself as someone who like gives my kids what they need to be successful in the things that matter, which is like loving themselves, knowing themselves, feeling free to be who they are, even if it's not on the path that I would like write out for them.
Right. Yeah. I say that too. I feel that. And I think as we all get older and we have more life experience, I think I know I try to talk to Grace and stuff, and I'm like, look, I lived this life already. Every mistake you have made, I've made it times 10. And you don't see that, you don't view that because you only see me as older, but I have the blueprint right here. I have the blueprint. So come to me. So I can tell you and I can show you that, like, oh, here it is. So if this happens, this has already happened. Or, if, you know, it's a little map, a tree. And I try to tell them, like, look, like with Joel, like we told him, dude, nobody is telling you that you need to have it figured out now. Like, I have changed my career many times. You just try jobs and you try things and then you see what works. Like, I remember I went to FIDM, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. I begged my parents, did the private college, everything. Right before I was graduating, as in like, I didn't even finish graduating. There was like a aha moment. I was working at Anthropology. And I was doing FIDM for visual communications, which is like all the display stuff in stores and product stuff like that. And I was working at Anthropology, and then I just happened to be talking to the store manager, and I said that I'm going to FIDM, and she said, "Oh, I graduated from there." And then, no disrespect to any store manager, but I was like, You just dropped all this money, and if I worked here for 3 more years, I could just get promoted to store manager anyways. And I don't know, it just freaked me out. Also because I was a very homebody too, and so I was like, oh, unless I really move and like go into a fashion world, I'm just gonna be a store manager. And I remember I went home to my dad crying, and I was like, I'm really sorry. I know I said I wanted to do this, but I don't think I want to do this anymore. And he was like, okay, do you want to do something else? And I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to go to Foothill College and I'm going to study sociology. And he was like, okay. And then I studied sociology. And then after that, I was like, you know, Dad, funny thing.
Yeah.
What am I going to make with sociology degree? He's like, yeah, I could have told you that. I tried to tell you that. I got my sociology degree to just fuck around, and I'm a police officer, but he got a sociology degree at UCLA because it was the easiest one. And he was a wrestler at UCLA. And he was like, yeah, I could have told you that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a cosmetologist. And he was like, okay, how are you going to do that? And I was like, well, funny thing, Dad, I don't have enough money, but it only costs $6,000. I swear to God, I will pay you back. Could you we'll have it in writing. And he was like, okay. And of course, I am very, very fortunate and blessed to have such supportive, mentally and monetarily parents. But then I got my cosmetology degree. And then I was like, how can I be a cosmetologist? I don't want to be away from my baby. And you have to work like a lot, like at night. Oh no. And he was like, what are you gonna do? I was like, I'm working insurance. And he was like, okay. So, and that's what I was telling Joel, like, bro, it's okay. Like, just do whatever you want to do in the moment and something will hit. And then I found jujitsu and jujitsu hit, and that's it. Like, and I found that in my late 20s and like, again, that wasn't my job then. Like, that was just, again, fuck around and find out. It did not become full-time. I remember this very vividly until maybe like almost 30, because I was still working like part-time. Oh yeah, then I quit insurance, obviously. And then I was working like HR, doing something and training, and Milton and I were together. And we lived actually next door to my parents. We rented a house that they own.
Yeah.
And so my parents watched the kids also, like when I would work and then Milton would, and then we would both go train and whatnot. And then one day he was like, bro, why are you working? Like, you're working like part-time. And then my parents couldn't watch the kids anymore. And then we were going to have to pay somebody. And he was like, why are you working? I was like, well, I need a job. And what do you mean? And he was like, just quit. And I was like, and do what? And he's like, just quit. Let's just do the academy together. Like, you're already doing everything. Like, let's just go full in. And I was like, okay, well, I need you to understand the magnitude of what you're saying. I was like, you are telling me, not asking me, you're telling me to quit. Therefore, you will then become financially responsible for me and my 2 children. And we will do this. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm going to say it one more time since this is your 3rd language.
Yeah.
Do you understand? And he was like, yes, just quit. Like, let's do this. And we were living together then already. And so I was like, okay. So I quit. And I guess I was in like 2016.
Yeah.
And I haven't done anything since.
Then it just hit. And that's, I mean, that
I mean, it wasn't like I had to play catch up. Like, it was everything we were doing. Like, it was, because again, as you guys know, like, running your business is a full-time 24 hours job.
Yeah.
So sure, we're already posting on social media. Like, it's just on all the downtime. So it wasn't like anything super new, but yeah. And then you just do it. Yeah. We're just talking about how, like, I've tried so many different things.
Oh, I've tried a ton of different things. And your dad sounds a lot like my papa. So my papa was the guy that I would go to. And, you know, whether it was like I was going to get a different job or I was going to, whatever it is, I'm going to switch my degrees or I'm going to, you know, like, I'm going to, it's not a pyramid scheme. You just need to buy this mango scheme. You know, and I'm gonna get people to. It's just multi-level. You know, it was a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
But he would just sit there quietly and listen to all of my plans and schemes, and he never once told me what to do. He never once shared his opinion. He would just sit back, and whenever I got done, he would say, "Well, buddy, if you think it'll make you happy, I hope you do it."
Yeah. Only once did I feel pushback, and insult from my dad. And I remember it was well into Milton and I being together. I had a chance to photograph, because again, I'm a photographer also.
I know, I didn't even listen.
Yeah, I know, I forgot about that. I had a chance to go, it was when I was like working for IBJJF and like all that, to do Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And work there. I was like a lower belt, obviously, and go to do that. And I remember I was asking my parents if they could watch the kids if I was going to do that. And then my dad was like, don't you think you should be like at home and like be more like motherly to them? And I was so taken aback by that. And he made me feel really guilty. And I remember I was like, yeah, but this is my job. But I don't think he saw that yet. Mm-hmm. And so I think he was like concerned. He was like, I felt, we never discussed it, but I felt that he was viewing me as still like playing this role and like living in a la la land.
Maybe because he had seen you like bounce around so much.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And yeah, that I remember we were in a Mexican restaurant. I remember it very vividly.
Yeah.
And that was the first time ever that I felt that he was questioning out of concern. And I was like, well, no. Like, It's okay. I am working. This is work. And I don't think he saw that as work.
Right.
Yet.
Yeah. But see, I kind of look back, and while I value and appreciate so much having like my papa was like my hype man,
Yeah.
In his way, there was also, as I look back now and I'm older and I'm like, shit, like, but what about like the wisdom that he had? Like, I wish sometimes that he had been like, now that I'm older, I wouldn't have listened to it in my teens and 20s, but I would have loved for him to have like stepped in and said more. If he truly thought it was a bonehead idea, I wish that he would, not that I would have listened to it, because I certainly had another mentor named Elmer, and I was gonna, I can't remember what it was, but anyways, it was a decision to move. I was getting married and I was gonna move, and he thought that I should stay where I was at, and we were in disagreement, and I became so angry at him because he was actually speaking some sense of wisdom into the situation, but I just wanted to do whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah, and you're blinded by it and you don't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. With age. Yeah, I always say that. I wish we had a magical power to be able to value what our elders and people we hold as mentors. I wish we had the ability to retain and accept their knowledge and wisdom at a younger age.
Yeah.
Because it just never happened. It will never be that way because of our brain development at a young age. Like, it just won't. And then when we are able to, they have since either passed on or whatnot. Like, I think about that a lot. Like, with both my grandparents, they lived well into their late 90s. And only then was I able to be like, please tell me something. Just tell me about your trip. Like, tell me anything, because that's when you value it. And that's when you like hold it so close and near and dear to you. But when you're young, you're just like, oh, whatever. Like,
so the thought that I'm having now is like, I look back on my grandfather was a wonderful man. He was devoted to his family. He worked, like tirelessly to provide, but not incredibly interesting. Like, he didn't share a lot of himself. And all I really saw was like this wonderful family man who was devoted to church and family and, work and things like that. He didn't have any hobbies, or at least I didn't know about them.
Right.
And so then like, I look at my parents. Again, they did the best that they could with what they had to work with. But like my dad didn't have hobbies. He went to work in a coal mine, came home, played with me, and took care of me, and then went back to work. And like
that's what we were saying too. Like, what are like your kids?
Right. And so I'm not
don't
sure. I'm not sure that I respected my parents as like interesting people with experiential wisdom, because they didn't have like I feel like I had them figured out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like my kids, I think hopefully they see somebody who's taken a bunch of risk, who started a company during a pandemic, who, you know, went back and started training jiu-jitsu in his 40s, you know, and
they'll see it all later.
Yeah, like, but hopefully that there's some credibility to that with them. Like, I'm not just telling them to do things that they don't see me doing. Whereas my dad literally was smoking like 2 packs of cool menthols a day, telling me that if he ever saw me smoke a cigarette, he'd beat my ass. And I'm just like, okay, man. And so what did I do behind his back? I tried smoking cigarettes. And fortunately for me, I think that I'm just like a huge wuss, because every time nicotine has touched my bloodstream, I've like gotten violently ill.
Yeah.
But it was that lack of credibility, that there wasn't a whole lot going on that like I admired or looked up to. And so then as a parent, I value being happy in front of my kids, doing the things that makes me feel full and whole and inspired, so that they have that template to work from. And it doesn't have to be so locked into like, you know, like I almost said I wish I was, but I don't. But I do respect and admire people like my wife, who went straight through, right? She went to undergrad at Rhodes, and then she went to medical school, and she knew what she wanted to do. Like she's attending at Vanderbilt, and like she went through that, and it's been this linear path for her, and she's established and stable, and she's good at what she does, and she's respected for what she does, and right? But like that was her path, and that's great for her. But I think sometimes it just doesn't work that. It certainly didn't work that way for me, and right. I don't know that she's any happier of a person than I am. And we just had wildly different paths.
I think that is so true. Like I feel like I tried that path. Like not tried, but like I feel like I so deeply wanted and expected that path as a young child, because that's what I saw. Like that was my child, like my parents' perfect little marriage. Like, well, now I know that they had their ups and downs as we all get older and things come to light. But, this perfect family. And again, our whole family unit, as in like my aunt and uncle lived next door to us. Like my grandparents lived a few streets away. Just were so close, tight knit. My parents both worked at the police department. My dad's a police officer. My mom worked crime analysis. Like, I just expected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 done. Like, check these boxes. And it wasn't actually until I met Milton when he was like, you are in a fucking bubble. That is not real life. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, stop with your white picket fence and dog, dream. And I was like, sir, that's rude as shit. And I was like, no, it's possible. He's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean success isn't in other areas.
Yeah.
And he was the one who, like, I mean, really, I'm sure he will not watch this, so it's okay. But like, if it was not for like the way I am now, I truly believe he has impacted greatly. Like, you keep talking like, oh, you seem so confident, so sure, like all these things. That did not happen until I met him. And he really, I felt shook I feel like I was like, like a dead Christmas tree, or like with all the dead pine needles. Like, I felt like he just shook all of that off and was like, just be you. And it doesn't matter what people think. Another one of his favorite sayings are, he would always ask me, do they pay your bills? And I'm like, what? Like, he's like, why do you care what people think. If they're not paying your bills, doesn't fucking matter. And I was like, that's a good one, buddy.
He's got some practical like truth bombs.
And it really, like, I have adapted so much from what he has taught me as a human that I feel like I really attribute who I am to his ability to be so truthful. And actually, I remember when we moved here, somebody tried to give me a very small business advice, and it wasn't very nice, and I did not like it at all. And again, when we moved here, I was also not a different person, but that was also really when I said, like, I am going to be the most authentic self I can be. I don't care anymore. And it is true. I think the older we get, the less we care. Like, we always see like old people like really saying it like it is. Like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And the most me I can be is even better, because then I know who's ever with me is with me for really who I am. So the more I stop trying to be what I think people want, the more real people have around me. Because if I keep trying to be somebody else, eventually that will fade, and then people are dropping like flies.
Yeah.
So when we opened the academy here, I was like, I don't give a fuck. This is who I am. Again, the more, like, if people find me on social media, cool. I'm not going to change who I am. And then whoever joins us knows exactly what they're getting. And it's not going to be a surprise, like, a few years down the road when I maybe say a political view or speak my mind about something. And going back to what that person said, again, we moved here end of 2020, and I was posting things about the lockdown and political stuff. And then he was like, oh yeah, you should really maybe tame what you put on your social media, because you might deter.
Not Milton, but the person who gave you this advice.
Yeah. The person. Maybe you should like push back or like hold back a little bit, because you might lose some students or potential students. And I was like, thanks for your advice, but no.
Yeah.
I will be me, and they can come and they can go.
Right.
I don't care. And
so what I like about that is, like, you and I differ some politically, not greatly, just based off of what you've posted. But like, it's not, it's nothing that like is so anyone's political differences wouldn't cause me to like not want to be around them anyways.
Yeah.
But what I like about that is, like, I know whenever I'm in your presence, I'm getting a full version of you, and I don't have to guess about anything.
Right.
Like, I know what you are thinking and feeling about like friendship and about whatever's going on between us. Like,
Yeah.
Okay. And it's such a low pressure then. It's such a low pressure type of relationship to be around somebody who, like, they are who they are from the get-go, because they know that they're going to eventually show up anyways. So that was some of the best advice I've ever heard, is be who you are, because you're going to show up eventually.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
We can only mask and edit and scale ourselves down to what we think other people want from us for so long.
Yeah.
Before the pressure of that just becomes way too much.
Yeah. It's.
And then everyone around us is surprised whenever we're pissed off at them, and they're like, you know, and all of our resentments start to come out because we're trying to be who they think they are. And then my experience is, whenever I've done that, people kind of take a step back and be like, we never asked you to do that. Like, that was all you, and that is on me. And so that be who you are, because you're going to show up eventually. And then another saying is, let the world feel the weight of who you are and let them deal with it.
That's
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's scary.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah. I mean, that's so true. I remember one time a very vivid exhaustion I was feeling. One time, like, before we moved here in our house in California, we didn't have a dishwasher, and the sink was full of dishes, and I was like, oh, I gotta wash all these dishes. And Milton's like, why?
Yeah.
I was like, well, I mean, it makes me feel better, and I need to wash these dishes, and I'm freaking out. Like, I feel like it's messy, and you probably like, why would you want like dirty dishes? Like, you just came home from working. And he's like, sit down. I don't care. And I was like, yeah, but it's dirty dishes. And he's like, sit down. Let's watch TV.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're fucking crazy. Like, you don't care? He's like, no, come sit down.
Yeah.
It's more important. I was like, okay. But yeah. We put that own pressure on yourself for maybe unnecessary reasons.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.